Week 3, we are back. I'm wearing number 4, Brett Favre, New York Jets. You don't see a lot of those jerseys. Here's why I'm wearing it. Went to the Jets-Browns game in Cleveland. Joe Flacco, old Jets quarterback, past his prime, wins the game for them. Brett Favre won a few games for the Jets, old quarterback past his prime. I don't have a Joe Flacco Jets jersey. Nobody does. I don't think they exist. If you do, at MikeTheMush Sports, let me know. Show off that thing, because he's a champ, and that was an unbelievable game. Also, relevant to number 4, we're down 4.4 units on the football season so far, but we broke about even last week. Wasn't a problem. We're getting back on the right track. Week 1 was a little weird because of the Bengals. Week 2, we lost on the Bengals again. I'm going to abandon ship on that. They do play the Jets this week. We're up 74 units on the year in total, and we're cooking. We're ready to go. I'm keeping it simpler this week. 4 picks on the agenda, and then some deep fantasy targets that we can look at going into week 3 as we always do. This video is coming out on a Thursday because we're not touching this Pittsburgh-Cleveland matchup. Now, if you're in a pool or something and you need picks, I'm not laying 5 with Cleveland. I won't do it, but it's a short week with 2 bad offenses, and I just think the ball could bounce in weird ways, and you don't want to have to deal with this whole game. Let it go. Another couple of stay-away games. Baltimore at New England. I just don't know enough. Baltimore scared me when they played the Jets week 1. New England's offense looks really bad, but their defense looks really good. And Baltimore somehow can't run the football, even though that's all they've been able to do historically. So I need some more time to figure out those 2 teams, and I just don't want to deal with it. Detroit at Minnesota. I like Detroit being feisty. Minnesota got embarrassed last week, but Kirk Cousins on primetime, we should have known. I took Minnesota. They didn't cover. He really is allergic to primetime. This seems like a smash bounce back for them, but last year when they played, one of those games came down to the wire on a crazy last-second field goal. The spread is a little big. Detroit seems like a covering machine. Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, a lot of big play potential. Another couple teams I want to let go. Another couple weeks until we figure it out. Vegas, Tennessee, those teams are a real mystery. I don't want to bet either one of them for a while, so that's off my board. Cincinnati at the Jets. Again, they should smash. This is a bounce-back spot for Cincinnati, but that Jets defense has looked pretty good. That Cincinnati offensive line has looked worse than last year somehow. I don't know how that occurred, but it has been the case. And the Jets beat Cincinnati last year with Mike White at quarterback. Should be a spot where Cincinnati bounces back, but last week should have been too, and they just didn't, so we're going to find out. They must win, but I'm not willing to lay 5 or whatever it is on the road with a team that hasn't shown me anything or any ability to set their quarterback up for success. Jacksonville at the Chargers. 7-point spread. I just think Jacksonville's pretty good. I think they're undervalued, and I think the Chargers are good too, but with Keenan Allen injured and the Chargers always finding a way to keep all these games close and do dumb things and miss a kick when they could have hit one and not put games away, I'm just something about backdoor cover with Jacksonville that I don't want to bet on because they're not the better team. I'm scared of that one. Atlanta, Seattle, I don't need to explain to you why I'm staying away. Green Bay, Tampa Bay, also staying away from that one. That, should be 2 offenses that are really good, but they haven't been. No pass catchers to throw to on either side. Both defenses have looked pretty good. The over-under is tantalizingly low. I think it's below 40 last I checked, and it feels like a trap. So I'm just going to watch that game, see what we come away with. How much can Brady and Rodgers stick with each other? Probably pretty tight. I imagine the game will be close, but who really knows? San Francisco at Denver I'm staying away from also because with Jimmy G now, San Francisco should be improved, but I do feel like Denver is due for a bounce back. They did win that game against Houston. Everyone's panicking, but they did win the game. Offense didn't look great. Offense looked pretty good in week 1 if they didn't fumble in the red zone a couple times and Hackett does dumb things. So another teams that I'm going to give a little bit of time to. And then Dallas and the Giants, who knows? Backup quarterback against what should be a backup quarterback. Division rival game should be a close one. I'm staying away from all those games. Let's get to the picks that we are making. 6 units on the line. The first one and the biggest one is going to be a round robin with 3 teams broken into 3 2-team parlays. The Chiefs minus 2.5 against the Colts. I know the spread is bigger. I'm taking an alternate line here because we're parlaying it anyway, and I'll lay pretty much whatever I have to with the Chiefs. The only scary part is that Jonathan Taylor is going to have a big game eventually. But if we're talking about Patrick Mahomes against a Colts team that has Matt Ryan, who has looked bad, and also can't protect him, I'll take the Chiefs. I said it last week. I'm taking the Chiefs until they let me down. They didn't let me down. I had Chiefs money line and -2.5 in that Thursday night game against the Chargers. And guess what? You're getting the Chiefs and Andy Reid with extra rest against a team they're much better than. I'm all over the Chiefs. Expect to see the Chiefs in more of these picks as we go along until we have a reason not to take them. The second one of the round robin is going to be Commanders plus 14.5 against the Eagles. I know everyone is all over the Eagles. I thought they actually should have done better last week. Aside from that long play from Hurts and some good runs that he had in the red zone, I feel like Kirk Cousins turned it over so many times. That should have been a bigger blowout. And I think in a divisional game, the Commanders have looked pretty good. They've battled. Wentz, revenge game. I think Hurts is due for a game where he has a couple of turnovers. I don't think he's an MVP candidate. I don't think he throws the ball that well. I think he's going to be annoying to deal with. But if we're doing the alt line on 14.5, I mean, I'd take Commanders on the regular spread, but since we're parlaying it together, I think the odds aren't nearly as bad as they should be on that, and I think they're getting way too many points, which allows me to cross into a million more key numbers. So Commanders plus 14.5 against the Eagles. I like them. I think they could potentially win that game. I didn't put them in my underdog parlay of the week, which is coming up. The third leg of the three-team round robin is the Texans and Bears under 44.5, another alternate line. I shouldn't have to describe to you why the under looks good here. The Bears can't complete passes. Their running game has been pretty good, but this Texans defense has been a little bit feisty, and I don't expect the Texans to put up huge numbers. I think it's going to be a struggle in the red zone for both teams. I think it'll be a bunch of field goals. If this game is 6-3 at halftime, I'm not going to be shocked. Slow starter, and we're getting that alt line up to 44.5, so even a 24-20 gets us there. I feel really comfortable with that. So Chiefs -2.5 at the Colts, Commanders plus 14.5 against the Eagles, and Texans Bears under 44.5. If you do the round robin, we're putting 3 units on it in total, and it comes out to about a plus 100 split altogether. We'll see what the numbers shake out as, depending on whether we win all of these, but it's a built-in hedge if we don't, and I think we're going to sweep it. If you did want to parlay them, it came out to like plus 180 or something like that if you're more into that, but I have 3 units on the round robin broken into 2s. Next pick. Going back to the well, Chiefs money line against the Colts, parlayed with Rams plus 3.5 against the Cardinals. I think that Cardinals victory was a little bit fraudulent. I think Kyler Murray is good, but more often than not, he has trouble when Hopkins isn't there. I know Jalen Ramsey got dominated by Stephon Diggs, but he's going to shut down Marquise Brown. That doesn't strike fear into me. And Zach Ertz, I mean, he can even defend Ertz because he's a big body. I think Donald is going to have big-time pressure, forcing Kyler out of the pocket, who's going to have to make plays down the field, and I don't know if they have the receivers to do so. Now, if you're scared of Kyler scrambling around and keeping drives alive, sure, you can always be scared of that, but let's not forget they were getting beat up by the Raiders last week, and I think the Rams are better than they've shown so far. I do have some concerns about the second wide receiver there, but Allen Robinson looked better last week, and Van Jefferson's on the way back, even though it doesn't seem like he'll play this week. The Rams just have way more weapons and a better defense, and I just think this Cardinals team is worse than the public perception of them coming off of that late crazy win against the Raiders. So I'm fading that, and I'm taking that line up to Rams 3.5 because I honestly think that field goal games happen all the time. The Rams did beat the hell out of the Cardinals last year, and I just don't see a way where they get their doors blown off by a Cardinals team who has to rally from behind all the time, anytime they even want to compete. So I'm taking the Chiefs and I'm taking the Rams. You parlay them together, the Rams plus 3.5 alternate line and the Chiefs money line. You get minus 125. We're throwing 1.5 units onto that one. I feel really good about that. A standalone pick, Bills-Dolphins over 52.5. This Bills defense has looked really good, but is banged up. Tre'Davious White not going to play. They had 2 more members of their secondary go down with what looked like serious neck injuries in their last game, and that's 3 members down on a secondary that has to go against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I don't know how you deal with that. The Bills are going to score. This game is going to be in good weather. These teams are going to be flying around the field. I think there's going to be a lot of big plays. I think there's going to be touchdowns. And as the Dolphins have shown, they can put up a ton of points in a half. against a secondary that is not able to run with them. And last week you saw it. Baltimore had aging members in that secondary, not super talented, not what they used to be. And the Dolphins just realized they can get yak all over them and then go deep if you're cheating on the short routes. I see that being pretty similar against the Bills. Now, what the Bills can maybe do is put more pressure on Tua at the point of attack in the backfield. Von Miller's looks pretty good. I get that. But 52.5, I just feel like both these teams are more than capable of putting up 30. And if we get to 28-27, we're more than clear. I can't imagine the Bills being held under 4 touchdowns at this point. And I do think the Dolphins are going to be able to compete, especially if they're playing from behind and don't have to run the ball. I just see those receivers doing a lot against an injured secondary. So Bills, Dolphins over 52.5 for 1 unit. And then the underdog parlay, last pick of the week. We're taking Panthers money line home against the Saints. I think the Panthers could be 2-0 right now, and the public is undervaluing where they are. Saints, Jameis has broken back. Dennis Allen going on the road doesn't strike fear into me. Their defense is good, but hasn't been quite what it was last year. And I think the Panthers getting points there and being an underdog on the money line is really valuable at home. And Baker has shown flashes of bringing them back into games and showing the big plays. So I think that's a good one. And then I'm also going to take the Texans money line against the Bears. I think the Bears are just bad. I don't think they deserve to be favorites against anybody. I know they beat the Niners in that weird monsoon type game. But in that kind of game where I'm valuing the under, I'll also value the plus odds on a game where I think any of these two teams can eke out a victory. It's going to be an ugly one. Both those games might be a little bit ugly. They might be close, but I see them being field goal games at the end, and I like the Panthers and the Texans more than I like the Saints and the Bears. So Panthers, Texans, both money lines, both underdogs, plus 405 to get both of those. I'm putting half a unit on that one. So we risked 6 units in total across those 4 bets. I really like the round robin. I'm trying to keep it super simple so that we can eke back into positive territory in the NFL where we belong. I'm going to put out some player props. They're not all the way out yet. They've been pretty slow to release some of these, and I like to get the video out so you guys can have some decisions to make in advance of the weekend. But at MikeTheMush Sports on Twitter and Instagram, as we see some more player props get dropped, I'll put some picks on there. We don't have to count them towards these totals, which I like to keep for the video picks only, but I'm always going to be sharing some more stuff. So take a look at that. We're going to have some player props coming out. Deep fantasy targets like we're doing every week. We break it down by position. Quarterback this week. If Trevor Lawrence isn't owned, I've seen him not owned nearly enough. If he's not owned, get him. He has looked pretty good and hasn't had that breakout game quite yet that he will be having. So take a look at him. I think Jared Goff is reasonable. With Amon-Ra St. Brown being as good as he's been, DJ Chark is going to have some good weeks. Hawkinson, Swift, and Jamal Williams. That offense is set up for him to have success. If you can have them playing from behind constantly, which they are because their defense is a disaster, he's going to throw up pretty good values against defenses that aren't dominant, right? I might not start him in Green Bay, fine, but you can pick some stuff week to week where Goff is going to be serviceable as a backup quarterback for you, and he's available pretty much everywhere. Same thing for Jimmy G. They have weapons, and you can play the matchups pretty well when he's going against a Seattle. I think he's actually pretty startable this week, and I think there's going to be weeks where Jimmy G rounds into form and you're able to get a 20 spot out of him. Maybe not a super high ceiling, but we're talking about backups here. And then if you want an IR stash, I think Zach Wilson, those Jets receivers look pretty good. Garrett Wilson is really good. Corey Davis had a big play last year. Elijah Moore. I think Zach Wilson, if you have an open IR spot and you are desperate at quarterback and need at least a backup and a guy that maybe will bring something to you in the future, like a poor man's Trevor Lawrence kind of stash, you can put Zach Wilson on the IR and not worry about the roster spot. For running backs, I still like Jerick McKinnon. He out-touched Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the red zone 3-0 last week, and they trust him a lot. And if Helaire goes down, he's going to be a PPR menace, I'm telling you. A lot of people focus on Pacheco, but McKinnon has value. He really does. We're going deep here. We don't give you the normal stuff. We're going for deep leagues, for attentive leagues, people that are definitely available. Travis Homer on Seattle. PPR monster, could have standalone value, similar to like a J.D. McKissick, who I always find on my rosters and I really like. I would take a gander at him. Rashad Penny's going to get hurt eventually, and I think Homer could... He already has the third down role locked up, but he could do a little bit more probably when Penny inevitably goes down with an injury. He's never played a complete season, and I just don't see it starting now. So not really worried about DJ Dallas and those kind of guys. I think Homer is worth a sniff, maybe, if you're desperate at running back. It's hard to get running backs, I get it. I would also stash Gus Edwards on the IR. He's going to come back eventually. Baltimore has not figured out their running game. They're going to get Dobbins back, but what if he's not healthy, and what if that doesn't work? Kenyon Drake's been a disaster. Mike Davis has been a disaster, and Gus is going to have some value. And again, I'm just looking at IR stashes for free roster spots if you can get them. Wide receiver, Dotson on the Commanders. I praised Wentz last week in the quarterback section. Dotson has gotten 1 million red zone targets. He has 3 touchdowns, and what that shows me is that a rookie has confidence from his quarterback already. It hasn't translated to a 10-target day or anything, and he's got to contend with McLaurin. I get it. But they're going to have injury. Logan Thomas is going to get injured again. There's going to be more targets to go around. They're going to play from behind a bunch. And if Dotson already has the respect from Wentz to get the red zone targets, he's going to get some short yardage targets before long. Those target numbers are going to go up, and I would get in on him, but while you can. I don't know if he's still available, but if he is, get in there. Same reason I said Zach Wilson. I think all the Jets receivers are actually pretty rosterable. Garrett Wilson looks amazing if he's available. I don't know what your league is doing. But even Elijah Moore and Corey Davis are worth a sniff. Take a look at them. Another IR stash, Van Jefferson on the Rams. I think he's going to be their burner. Kupp makes big plays. We know that. But Allen Robinson isn't necessarily going to be the downfield 40-yard touchdown kind of guy, and Van Jefferson showed some of that ability last year. I think it's worth seeing how that goes because they haven't quite figured out who that second perfect weapon is going to be. It's been Higbee to this point. Robinson looked okay. I think Van Jefferson could take a step forward. It's possible, and again, if it doesn't, it's just an IR stash. You wait the week, you drop him. Christian Watson is a long-term play that I'm still keeping an eye on for the Packers because he makes boneheaded plays. He had that drop. He had a snap hit him while he was in motion, which resulted in a fumble. But also, he does get open. And Rodgers eventually is going to have to rely on someone that's not Sammy Watkins. Dobbs hasn't looked very good. Cobb hasn't looked very good. Lazard is back, yeah, but I'm not saying to play Watson right now, but keeping him on the roster, something has to break there in Green Bay. Someone has to step up, and I think it could be him. Lastly, for receivers, Russell Gage and Brashad Perryman on Tampa, someone's got to play for Tampa this week. So if you're in the position where you need someone to start right this minute and there aren't many people available, I think Gage and Perryman could put up numbers. It's a tough defense, but I'm talking about scraping the bottom of a barrel for an injury replacement or something where you have to put in someone in the flex. I think both of those guys could show some pretty good ability to get down the field, and Brady's going to have to throw to somebody. They're going to run a lot, but Brady's still going to have 25 pass attempts. I've never seen him in a game where he doesn't since 1999. And then if you go to tight end, Gerald Everett, I'm liking him. I'm liking how he looks with Herbert. Herbert seems healthy. Everett over the middle of the field seems like a big body. He seems like he's in really good shape. He seems fast. He's always been really talented. I don't know why he doesn't get respect, so I think he's worth rostering. I actually think he's worth starting. And then Tunyon on Green Bay. I keep looking at Green Bay. I mean, I mentioned Christian Watson. I think Tunyon is still going to get back into that touchdown mix. He hasn't played a ton of snaps yet because he's still recovering from that ACL, but I think he's going to go up and up and up, and those target numbers are going to go up too. Anyone trustworthy with Rodgers right now is worth taking a look at. Cole Kmet, what goes on? I mean, I'm out, but like, he can't get goose eggs every week, right? There was so much hype around this guy. I'm not saying to pick him up if he's been dropped, but just, I don't know, take a look. I like to drop people that played in the 1 o'clock game if I have like a streamer spot if they didn't show me anything. And if it's that kind of situation where you have a spot that you're just like, I don't know who else to get, maybe Kmet bounces back. He is a big body, but Fields hasn't thrown the ability to show to anyone, so I'm not really recommending that. I like the other two better, but it's intriguing to me that he's been dropped in so many leagues after 2 weeks. For defense, don't be scared of Baltimore at New England. I know I kind of ragged on their secondary, and they looked awful in that game against Miami, but they did still put up a pretty good fantasy week. They got like 13 points, even considering the fact that they got blown out in the second half, and New England's offense just isn't very good. So as a streamer for this week, I still think Baltimore is worthy. If you want a deep reach, this side, New York Jets. They're going against Cincinnati this week, who has a terrible offensive line. And even if they get torched deep a couple times, they're going to put up some sacks. I wouldn't be shocked if they put up a decent number fantasy-wise. And then the nice thing about them is if you're really in need, they go to Pittsburgh next week. So you're getting Cincinnati and Pittsburgh back-to-back, and I think you could put up numbers as a defense against both those teams. I think that Jets defense is undervalued. They look fast. They're talented. Saleh has them cooking. I think people haven't realized how decent that defense is. Sure, the Browns ran on them, but they didn't put up a ton of points, and the Browns run on everybody. So I think you get an easier matchup this week in the trenches against Cincinnati than you did last week against the Browns, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. And then going against Trubisky next week, I just think that's a good back-to-back if you're really scrambling and your defense hasn't shown anything. As for kickers, kick rocks. Nobody likes kickers. Pick a random one. Get your commissioner, get rid of kickers. That's my crusade. There's nothing more to say about it. Now, if you haven't noticed, Bob in the corner. He's pulling for us this week. We love Bob Ross, and if there was an NFL player named Bob Ross, I would be throwing him into the deep fantasy targets constantly. But if you want more memes, at MikeTheMush Sports, some maybe close-up pictures of Bob, I don't know. We'll have to see. I actually have a Bob Ross Chia Pet and a Bob Ross t-shirt. I fall asleep to Bob Ross painting. I want to learn to paint, but I don't know how. A lot of things. A lot of things to throw at you. Pretty much anyone named Bob. Is there a good Bob in the NFL? It's hard to think of one. Bob Tunyon? Does that count? Does he go by Bobby? Bobby Tunyon sounds like a cooler name than Robert Tunyon. So, all over the Green Bay stuff. You got the picks. We're going to have a winning week. I'm sure of it. We're going to come back with some UFC picks soon. Do individual videos for that. Post them here. We're getting more bets on the board. 6 units risked this week. We're up 74 on the year and down 4.4 on football alone, but we're turning it around. Once we get profitable in football, it's all uphill. Hopefully we can get into some of these stay-away games that I'm not comfortable with quite yet, but our fantasy team's been cooking, so at least we got that. Like, subscribe, spread the word. We'll see you next week. Peace out.